Hello and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football Scouts Breakfast Club. It's 11:17, so apologies for the slight delay, but we've got 13 minutes left until the Game Week 9 deadline, so this is our opportunity to talk about what we want to do, any last-minute changes, and generally just panic before the deadline passes. Normally, Joe hosts this video, but he's having a well-deserved break today. I believe he's doing the Match of the Day challenge, so I'm looking forward to seeing his Twitter feed later on.
Till tomorrow, right?
Is it for the whole weekend?
I think so. Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Okay, well, brave man. I don't know if I could do that. I'm too addicted to the live scores, and to be fair, I got to cover it anyway. So here we go. But yeah, so I'm joined by Az and by Ted this morning to talk about our plans for Game Week 9. We'll come to you first, Az. Just on the back of your joining the Pro Pundits this week, big announcement for Fantasy Football Scout. Tell us how you feel without using too many football kind of cliches. Oh, I'm delighted to come on board. I work with a manager. None of that. Let's have something. Let's have something real, Az.
Oh, it's unbelievable, David. No, it's good. It's really nice. I mean, I used to write some articles for the site a few years ago, back before I was an admin and all that. Kind of haven't really been doing that too much because been focusing quite a lot on the pods and things. So it's going to be nice to go back to writing a bit. And obviously, I did the Black Box podcast and sort of got a bit bored of doing that on my own. But putting that in kind of article form is quite nice. Being able to write that sort of every now and then. So yeah, really nice. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and we are as well. It's always good to have more content on the site, especially from a sort of strategy perspective and getting different people's opinions. And yeah, I must say, Az's first article was a great read. So you've got 12 minutes left to read it if you want to use it to influence your Game Week 9 strategy. So go and check that out. Also joined this morning by Ted. I think this is your first appearance on an actual video, although people may be familiar with your timestamps that you do for the Scoutcast. So everybody, this is Ted. This is Rotation. Take your pick. How does it feel to be on your video?
Yeah, it's nice. Makes a change being on this side of it. Got an urge to start my timer, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Hopefully, you'll still have time to do the timestamps if and when. I mean, it's worth saying that we owe Ted quite a lot. He's still at university, balancing studying with making sure that Fantasy Football Scout is still a well-run website. And yeah, so everyone who uses comments or uses RMT. All of the things that we have on the site, then Ted is a big part of that. So it's good to have you on as well. And we're going to come back to Az first and talk about your team for Game Week 9. Obviously, those who read your article this week will have some idea of what your thinking was. Anything changed since you wrote the article? Anything that you're panicking about in the last few minutes? What's your thoughts ahead of this deadline?
Yeah, there was actually. So when I put the article out, the team I had on had Pookie still in, but in the article I said I was going to move him on for Callum Wilson because I like that Norwich game. I think Wilson's probably a better pick going forward. Yesterday, I started having real doubts though, just thinking actually Bournemouth is a pretty good fixture as well for Pookie. I could save the transfer. There's a few issues that could arise with my team, like having no Liverpool attacker, having no De Bruyne, and having 2 transfers next week could let me sort of fix that, or maybe getting a Leicester attacker. So I started having cold sweats in the night, and then in the end I just thought, no, come on, I've had this transfer plan for 2 weeks, let's not suddenly back out of it. So I did make the move last night. So Callum Wilson's come in, and it's a tricky week because there doesn't seem to be the 2 kind of standout captain options. I think this week are 2 kind of mid-price strikers in Abraham and Wilson, which is a strange one when you think about Liverpool and City have been kind of dominating captain's picks sort of every week. So I think this is as good a time as any to roll the dice. I just think any team up against Norwich, it has to be considered for it. And if I'm bringing Wilson in and bringing him over Pookie, who could also do quite well, I just think it's hopefully Callum's time to shine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really nervous. We'll talk about my team later, but I don't have Callum Wilson, and I'm so nervous. And I think I've seen the general this week has been talking about how he didn't want to sign him because he's the type of player that tends to let you down if you get him in or you captain him or you get him in on a hit, all of those sorts of things. But the fact that I've not signed him and the fact the general's not signed him, I think that surely means double figure haul's coming, right? So I'm very nervous. Let's talk about...
So just the key thing I thought was it's not just this Norwich game, it's the Watford game next as well. If he was going out of Norwich into one of these United or Newcastle games, I'd probably be less tempted. But the fact he's got Norwich and then Watford, which are the 2 best fixtures any team can have in a row, I just think he's kind of quite important to have some kind of Bournemouth attacker, and he's definitely the best one.
Yeah, it does look good. I mean, when I was looking into it as well, I was quite nervous about that fixture coming up because Watford, that's so bad. And you're right. If you're looking for back to back, it's hard to find two that are as good as that. Let's talk about your bench in a bit of detail because you're quite concerned about whether or not you should play the bench boost. I mean, people have done it before in single game weeks and it's gone well. People have played triple captains in single game weeks and it's gone well, and they've played both of those chips in double game weeks and it's gone completely wrong. So I don't envy you right now. I mean, I'd love to have those sorts of players in my squad, but actually deciding who to start and to bench, that's a tough one.
It has been really tough, and in some ways it's good. You got a good squad to choose from, but what you want is a good squad with difficult fixtures, different weeks. So the choice of which ones to play is quite easy. The issue is that this week all of my players seem to have good weeks, and I've been waiting on the press conferences to decide on the bench boost trip because a few seasons ago I left the bench boost until game week 34 or something. I remember looking at my team in like game week 32, and I had a similar setup to this. All of my bench players looking quite strong. That week they got about 35 points in a single game week, and then the double game week rolled around, and the same players got about 13 points between them. So in that case, I should have played it in the single game week. The key thing for me was the press conferences. So I was waiting for news on Lacazette because I think that's going to probably impact on Saka's minutes, and I was waiting on news of Krul as well. And if those two players were kind of confirmed out, then I would be more tempted to play it. But it looks like Krul's back. It looks like Lacazette's gonna see some game time. So that kind of puts me off a little bit. So I'd pretty much just be playing it for Otamendi and Rico. I think Bournemouth aren't that good defensively anyway. I think Pukki could well score in that game. So Rico's probably not going to get massive haul. He might get an assist or something, 6-7 points. And Otamendi's just absolutely garbage. So playing a bench boost for Otamendi just seems a bit weird. I mean, he's definitely on my hit list. I know they've got. I mean, the next two games after this, 2 home games against Villa and Southampton. But I'll be watching this Crystal Palace game sort of quite intently because I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't start some of these games because I just think anyone is better than him at the moment.
Yeah, and Stones is back in training, and
Stones is back. I mean, even if they take someone from the academy and stick him in, or if they put Rodri back or something or Walker at centre back, Otamendi just doesn't seem to defend. Doesn't do the basics right. I don't get him. He's just such an odd defender to watch. Dives in for every tackle and misses 95% of them. It's very strange.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's Man City all over, isn't it? I mean, I remember last season when there was a lot of interest in Laporte in the first half of the season, and a few of us on Scoutcast just weren't that interested because they were the kind of team that, fine, their defensive stats look great because they don't really concede too many shots, but when they do, it's probably a big chance and it usually goes in because they're a possession-based team. So Guardiola doesn't. I don't want to say he doesn't need to coach them how to defend because I think he does. But if you're scoring 6 or 7 goals, every now and then, you're scoring 3 or 4 most games, maybe it doesn't matter. But for fantasy managers, it's hugely frustrating. And obviously, we sort of uncovered over the international break that so far this season, Man City have conceded, I think, 47% of the big chances that they conceded in the whole of last season already. So benching Otamendi for that game, even though it's Palace at home, I mean, I would do the same. Just on Rico, I don't want to scare you too much, but in the last 4 game weeks, the only defender who's created more chances than him is Alexander-Arnold, and also worth saying Rico's created more big chances than Alexander-Arnold. So
I'd love to play him.
Doing well.
I really would love to play him. I just can't. I mean, McGinn to me is the one that I'm playing who I had a bit of a doubt over because he, 5 games against Norwich they got before the international break, he wasn't involved in any of them, which is really surprising considering we got a hat-trick against San Marino over the international break. He scored in his 2 previous games before that match. It looks like he might be playing in a slightly different role. So whereas before he's been bombing forward, playing, often playing as like the furthest player up the pitch, he's now playing a little bit deeper, and they're playing with more of a front 3 of Grealish, Wesley, and El Ghazi or Hourihane, whoever it is. So I'm a bit concerned about his role in the side now going forward. So I could potentially play Rico over him or or something. But I think, I mean, he's just got a hat trick, and like he's got five goals in 4 games for McGinn. So I'm gonna give him a chance against my beloved Brighton.
Are you really going to look at that San Marino game and sort of count it as a relevant game there?
Yeah,
I mean, it's San Marino. I mean, come on. Yeah,
it's Scotland.
It was a bit of a giant killing, but you know, it's I'm not going to be popular for saying that. But it's not much, is it?
It's true. I mean, but you know, if you watch the highlights of that game, Scotland were pretty poor, and McGinn was the player who stepped up and was actually, you know, he basically dragged them over the line. Like without him in the team, they probably would have won it, but I don't think it would have been anywhere near as convincing. And I think, you know, confidence-wise, for someone like that, he just keeps scoring. So I'm hoping that, you know, the manager kind of sees that and says, well, you know, you're on a great run of goal-scoring form. Let's keep you playing a bit higher, and hope you can keep banging them in. But yeah, I mean, 5 goals against Norwich. I can't believe he didn't get anything in that.
Yeah, that was crazy. But that's classic FPL though. I mean, you look at his stats and you just think, how did that not happen? Because I think for midfielders under 7 million, he's had the most shots on target all season, and I think for one stage he had the most shots on target of anyone other than Abraham at one point. So he should. I think he'll get something today. The only thing I would say, and again, sorry, I don't like to sort of like skate before the deadline, is personally, I'd actually start Rico over Soyuncu, because I just kind of fancy Burnley just to pop up with a headed goal.
I haven't got Soyuncu though. I've got Pereira.
Oh, it's Pereira. Oh, sorry, that's my mistake. Fair enough, because Pereira is the upgraded version. But there are people out there. The reason I brought it up, there are people out there sort of torn between the two. I do fancy.
I do playing Rico over Soyuncu, definitely, because just more attacking threat. Whereas Pereira's got both.
Yeah, I mean, and between Pereira and Soyuncu, definitely Pereira's the one because Soyuncu just doesn't really offer anything other than the clean sheets. And of course, that's not to knock him as an option. I think he's a good option, a decent price in a defence that has some clean sheet potential. But Burnley anywhere, I always fancy them to not play particularly well, but then just get one big chance and Chris Wood just nods it in and just ruins everyone's day. So that's how they roll. I mean, we'll see. I mean, yeah, we'll come on to my team in a minute. I've probably gone too much on Burnley. So we're about 1 minute away from the deadline and also 1 minute away from team news. So I'm going to come to you briefly, Ted, because I understand you have Yarmolenko in your team.
I don't.
Oh, you don't.
So whilst we've been talking, I've spotted a tweet from ex-West Ham employee, and he's saying that Yarmolenko is going to be on the bench. So I've possibly...
So it was Yarmolenko.
It was, yeah. We were joking a bit. It's probably going to be him. But yeah, it sounds like, I don't know what the issue is. My bench is too weak to be able to carry someone like that. So he's gone straight away. Hudson-Odoi's come in.
Wow.
To create a triple Chelsea attack. But
nice.
Live transfer as well. I got so worried there. When you said he's not in my team. I was like, have I got it wrong? But I mean, fair play. I mean, so the team news has just dropped, so we will just run through it, and then we'll come straight back to you, Ted, to get more information on your team. So, yes, the West Ham team is Roberto in goal, Masuaku, Diop, Ogbonna, Fredericks are the back 4, Rice and Noble look to be the defensive midfield pairing, Lanzini and Anderson and Fornals are the attacking midfield 3, so no Yarmolenko there, and Allaire up front, and yeah, confirmation that Yarmolenko is on the bench. Then the Everton team is Pickford in goal, Dino at left back, Mina and Keane as the centre back, Sidibe at right back, Davis, Andre Gomez are the 2 holding midfielders, Bernard, Iwobi, Walcott are the attacking midfield 3, Richarlison is up front.
Wow.
As the centre forward.
No Sigurdsson, no Calvert-Lewin, no Keane.
Absolutely. Sigurdsson and Calvert-Lewin, and yeah, as you say, Moise Keane, all on the bench. So that's quite a few changes for both teams there. I mean, a lot of people aren't too invested in the Everton attack anymore. Be interesting to see, what happens with this bit of a shake-up, especially Sigurdsson on the bench. Although with Sigurdsson on the bench, they might finally score a penalty. You never know. But let's come back to you then, Ted. Let's have a look at the rest of your team. We've already... so apologies. The screenshot that I had available does still have Yarmolenko in there, but such is the charm of Breakfast Club. We've had a live transfer once again, and it's slightly more interesting than a goalkeeper transfer or Neil switching to 4.5 million strikers. You now have a triple up on the Chelsea attack, which is... I find that very exciting.
Yeah, so I was really struggling for transfers this week. I had 2 free transfers and pretty much nothing in the bank, so I wasn't really feeling too much, to be honest. I like Wilson, but I'm not going to drop Aubameyang this week for him. I might do that down the line. It's a lot more of my transfers are just sort of thinking what I am going to be doing. So I've got no Liverpool, for example, Liverpool attack that is.
Same. We're in trouble.
Yeah, I'm happy enough with it for now, but around Game Week 13 where that fixture swings, oof.
Which means I'm worried about Spurs at home.
Yeah, when I took Salah out, Spurs at home seemed like I couldn't see him doing too well. It's a top 6 game, and then Spurs have gone and
I know, exactly the same.
Done their thing. But yeah, so we'll see what happens there. That's a bit of a nervous one now. Even United as well. I think United will still turn up today, but it is a tricky one. We'll see what happens there. But I've gone for Otamendi out just because, like I was saying, I don't have the confidence in that defence, and I'm not sure he's going to keep his place. He's been so poor recently. And I bought in Bolly. Was thinking about Tomori as well, but whilst I prefer Tomori, I think it makes more sense to my team to bring in Bolly, just because the way their fixtures line up. Otherwise, I was going to be stuck playing like Tomori against City down the line, which wouldn't have been great.
And it's let you get the triple Chelsea.
Exactly, yeah. So I absolutely adore anyone that follows me on Twitter will know that I adore Hudson-Odoi. I really did not want to block myself off from doing that. And I mean, like,
are you a Chelsea fan then?
Oh yes.
Oh God.
Are you a Chelsea fan? What a silly question to ask Ted. He's a big Chelsea fan.
Yes.
Not I like you, Ted.
Not quite big enough of a fan to feel confident about triple Chelsea attack, but we'll see. Hoping that game's going to open up against Newcastle and they do concede a few. Haven't captained Abraham though. I don't. It seems silly to say it, but I'm not confident enough to captain him. But I am confident enough to triple up on them. So we'll see what happens there. I've got a Aguero captain. I think with De Bruyne back, that's going to be I think that'll be a City team that can break down resilient Palace.
Yeah, I'm happy that you've shown enough faith in Aguero to captain him. I haven't done that, but for me, my opportunity to get Wilson was to move Aguero out and then spread the funds elsewhere. But I kind of felt the same. I think with De Bruyne back, they're going to be a lot better. I want to talk about Abraham briefly because obviously, as a Chelsea fan, you see quite a lot of him, and also just bring into the conversation that Simon March, who also has joined us to the Pro Pundits this week, in his piece that he put out this morning. I think he has signed Abraham as his replacement for Pukki, but a lot of his article was dedicated to the fact that he would like to see a bit more from Abraham. Before kind of considering him as, someone who you can captain every week, someone deserving of all the plaudits they're getting from a lot of the other people within the community. So it's interesting to see that Simon, as a Chelsea fan, yourself as a Chelsea fan, maybe reservations is the wrong word, but are you sort of in the same sort of position where you don't feel that you 100% trust Tammy with the captaincy? I mean, obviously he was big in the conversation this week. He scored the week before. I mean, what's your thoughts on him as an asset long term?
There's a lot of unknowns there, really. I mean, there's no denying that pretty much the entire Chelsea attack is fantastic value. You're looking at the prices they've been given, and you can see why they've been priced where they are. But I think if this Chelsea attack clicks, it will be an amazing forward line. I have absolutely no doubts. I'm talking sort of City level attacks. I know that's people will put that down. I know people will put that down to a Chelsea bias there, but I truly believe the talent and especially the depth in that squad is really fantastic. Now, will Abraham be the guy that'll be scoring the goals? I'm not so sure. I think he has improved hugely since pre-season. Pre-season, he was struggling with his finishing quite a bit, playing more of just a pure pressing role. And creating chances for the guys behind, like Barkley, like Mount. He's changed a bit more now to being more clinical. His finishing has been superb in a few games recently. I do really like him, but there's something there. There's just that bit of unknown that just doesn't give me the confidence. I don't know. I can't quite warrant captaining him right now. Don't get me wrong. This week, I think he could be a fantastic option because there's no one else really standing out to me. But in a week where I've got Aguero or Aubameyang or Salah with a good game, I don't think Abraham's going to be coming into much consideration for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly interesting to hear you say about the unknowns. I suppose it can be easy to forget for those of us who perhaps don't watch Chelsea with so much regularity that at the start of the season, we were all sort of like, we weren't really sure who the number one centre forward was going to be, and that's why a lot of people didn't have Abraham at the start.
There was never any doubt that it wouldn't be Abraham.
Oh really? Okay.
There was never any doubt. It's a tricky one because you've got Giroud, and Giroud's a top player. You've got Batshuayi, he's another top forward. But the way that Lampard plays, only Abraham can truly fill that role.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, I should. That rings a bell now. I remember having this conversation with you over the summer, actually, whereas I wasn't sure. You were more sure someone who was at the club. But in terms of a fantasy asset, he has somewhat come out of nowhere, and I suppose that's always going to be at the back of people's mind, isn't it? That, could this just be a run of form that's not going to last? But I suppose the other interesting thing that Simon was talking about in his article, which was quite interesting, was the fact that he doesn't take the penalties. Is that something that particularly concerns you as well? Because let's say he has an off day and he's a premium asset who takes penalties, then it doesn't matter. If they get a penalty, then he can have a bad game and still score points, like maybe Aguero can, maybe Salah can. Do you think that's something that is going to... we've seen other players take the penalties and not him in games when he's not scored any at all. Do you foresee that becoming a problem further down the line?
I wouldn't say it's a problem. It's an annoyance, sure, because obviously with your forwards, you'd hope they take the penalties. I'm not quite sure who does take penalties. Lampard seems to decide it's a different player every week. And he certainly can take a good penalty, but he just seems to be behind quite a few players at the moment. Is it a problem? No. It's if he was taking it, that'd be a great plus to his name, but whatever. He's only, what is it, like...
He's a 7 million striker,
exactly.
First choice for Chelsea. Like, we can't really be too.
Well, he's up to 7.7 now, isn't he? Or
7.7. Yeah.
I'm happy with that. Penalties aren't going to change my mind on that.
He's a 9 million striker, really. If you
think
about
100%. Yeah.
What he's delivering at the moment, and his kind of security in the team, you'd pay 9, I think, for him. So even 7.7, I think, is a really good price.
Yeah, he certainly offers great value, doesn't he? Let's move on to my team then. I didn't do anything this week. I wanted to, but I looked at the Man City players I have, and admittedly I still don't have De Bruyne, but it sounds weird. But basically the way I was thinking was I could maybe get to De Bruyne by moving Aguero to Wilson, and then Aguero to King, and then I think Cantwell I'd be able to get him up to De Bruyne. But weirdly, I said to myself, I don't want to sign a Man City attacker for Palace away, but I'm happy to keep 2 of them, which probably doesn't make too much sense. But in terms of transfers are precious, and people who know what I'm like, I like to save them as much as I can. And looking ahead to potentially wanting to kind of restructure in the middle with maybe doubling up on the Liverpool attack. Aubameyang is still on my radar as well because Arsenal's fixtures are very nice as well. I wanted to hold that transfer, but I'm still quite nervous about this game about this game week because I don't have the Bournemouth attack. Thankfully, I've seen other people, including people on this video, who've done the same. But surely it would be absolutely crazy if Norwich don't concede heavily in this game. But then again, we all said that about the Man City game, so I'm kind of like, I keep going around in circles in my mind. I keep saying to myself, if there's one team and one player that's going to troll everyone when they should be scoring a hat-trick, is Bournemouth and Callum Wilson, right? So
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
So, yeah. I always say with Callum Wilson, I don't want to own him because then you have to make a decision about him. I don't know if you guys think the same thing as with players like that. We had it with Hazard a few years ago until his really good season last year. But it's like you kind of almost willing to just let everyone else have the points because you just can't be bothered with the stress of the week after him blanking against Watford or anything like that. I don't want to touch him with a barge pole.
7 weeks of attacking returns though in a row, and then a blank against Arsenal. That's good.
That's huge, isn't it?
It is,
and
good,
he went down in price. It makes no sense.
You know what's more annoying? I had him game week 1. I sold him game week 3.
Me too.
Because he wasn't living up to his value. Because he'd had 2 assists for 8 million, just wasn't cutting it. But I don't know. The flip side of that is, can he keep it going? I suppose against Norwich, yeah, he can. But the stats are still good. That's the thing, is that he's the kind of player who I look at his numbers and think, they're pretty good because he's one of these players he's had 8 shots in the box last 4. Basically, all of them have been on target, and almost all of them have been big chances as well. So whenever he does shoot, it's on target and he tends to score. Abraham's kind of the other type of striker, as we covered on the captain video, has a lot more shots, there's a greater volume of shots, which therefore increases the likelihood that his chances are going to be either a big chance in the box on target. I personally generally prefer those types of players because if they're going to have lots of shots, it's just law of averages for me. I'm kind of happy that I don't have Wilson and Abraham because those who read the captain article this week will know that they were the two that I settled on as I think are the best options this week. And I wouldn't really want to have to choose between them. So, I mean, I suppose there's still good things to have not had Wilson. I mean, there's so many things I'm worried about this team. I've got double Norwich attack still, but that's just influenced by the fact that I don't trust Bournemouth's defence, and it looks like they've got a few of their players back. And then my biggest risk is the fact that I'm doubling up on the Burnley defence away at Leicester because I just fancy them to frustrate them today. So, I mean, it's very different. There's a lot of people out there whose squads are very different to me. I'm still at the
all three of our squads are completely different to each other, which is nice. Because you think a couple of weeks ago, everyone pretty much had the same team, didn't they? But it looks like people are starting to differentiate a bit.
Yeah.
How long are you going to be keeping that the double Norwich attack there? It doesn't seem sustainable.
Today's their absolute last chance, I think, because when you look at their fixtures moving ahead, this is the last one that. I mean, to be honest, when I had them both and they were firing well, this was the crossroads for me anyway. Because Bournemouth away, but then Man United at home. Man United's defence has been pretty good. Brighton, when they're at home, so that's game week 11, their defence has been pretty good. So the Watford game week 12, maybe, but by that stage, could they both just be playing sensible and not going for each other's throats because they kind of need some points? So this is kind of their last chance anyway, and I've got the 2 transfers banked. And as I said, I mean, if Wilson does something today that really forces my hand for that Watford game, and Aguero doesn't do particularly well, then but De Bruyne does, then next week I can use those 2 free transfers to do to play around there a little bit, downgrade Aguero to maybe Wilson or King or something like that.
Downgrade Aguero before Villa at home and Southampton at home though. But you can't. I know.
But pulling in De Bruyne at the same time would sort of, I don't want to say offset it, but De Bruyne is more locked in to start. I don't know. I'm not really sure exactly what I'm going to do, but this team is definitely going to have a bit of a shake-up in the next couple of weeks, which is why I just wanted to bank that transfer. Because you're right, the Norwich attack isn't sustainable. Unless, of course, if they both get attacking returns today, then maybe it sort of like changes my mind, vindicates a little bit. Because there's a lot of players in my team that people have moved on, so I'm hoping that just giving them one last chance is going to do something. But yeah, I'm not excited about this game week at all. I'm quite nervous, as anyone without Bournemouth players, generally would be. So yeah. And of course, Leicester as well scare me as well because I've sold Vardy this season, I've sold Maddison this season, and now I'm doubling up on the defence against them. So I'm taking a lot of risks, but there's, as you mentioned, the template team has kind of dissipated a bit, and there's a couple of weeks of transition where maybe doing something a little bit different helps claw back some of the lost ground from earlier in the season when the template hasn't done so well. So yeah, we'll have to see. Let's sort of move ahead to the coming weeks. We've talked about some of the big games coming up for Man City and some of the big games coming up for Liverpool. Joe talked about on the Scoutcast this week, so I want to get your thoughts on this, guys, about doubling up on the Liverpool attack in a few weeks' time when Man City's fixtures start to dry up in 3 or 4 weeks' time. So let's go to you first, Ted, in terms of your premium assets. I mean, do you think that's something that people should be looking to do? Shaking up that template a little bit and changing the way that we look, especially at Man City attack with those tough fixtures. What do you think?
I can see people wanting to move to double Liverpool. It's not going to be something that I'll be able to do just because I don't think my team structure really could support it. I'd have to make far too many moves to do that. I couldn't be dropping many City for that though because it's Manchester City. They're going to score against anyone and they can score multiple against anyone. The likes of Aguero, De Bruyne, Sterling, they'll all keep scoring. So I'm not too keen to get rid of them straight away. Doubling up Salah Mane could definitely work. But for me, I'll probably go for just one, probably Mane, to be honest, at the moment. Might join Jeff on that one. I really don't like swapping between premium players too much. I'm a big fan of following fixtures, but I think that for me, if you're talking about dropping 2, possibly 3 premiums just to get in the correct ones you want, that's too much for me. There's going to be too many big problems as the fixture congestion sort of builds up. I don't want to be wasting free transfers dealing with that.
Yeah, totally understandable. I mean, I generally speaking. So, for example, this week a lot of people have sold Salah, but I've held on because I don't. You're right. I generally don't like to move on a player like him. Obviously, of course, in this scenario, we're talking about maybe adding to him, but I totally get what you mean about you sometimes invite a lot of trouble if you start moving your premiums around because they're the type of players that can punish you. What about you, Az? What's your plans for the long term with some of the fixture changes, fixture shifts that are coming up?
Yeah, I mean, it's not nice not owning any Liverpool attackers. Yeah, it's just really not. So one's going to have to be coming in. I'm going to try and hold fire and keep to the plan and bring one in after the fixtures turn again. I'm pretty tempted by getting Mane and Salah. The last 2 seasons I've done that. So last season, Mane and Salah double up basically single-handedly took me from like 400,000 to where I finished about 60k. Combined with the fact I started captaining Mane over Salah because he was outscoring him. Season before that, or was it the season before that? Anyway, I've toyed with Coutinho and Salah as a option as well. So when he was in the team, so I had a Liverpool double up with those, worked really, really well. So it can be really powerful. So I'm definitely looking at doing it. I'm also thinking about maybe going for the Liverpool defence double up, trying that again. It didn't exactly work amazingly in the first sort of 7 weeks that I had it. But I do really like Joel Matip at sort of 5.5. I think he's having an absolutely outstanding season. He got sort of 3 bonus when they kept a clean sheet against Sheffield United. I think he's definitely got that centre back spot alongside Van Dijk, with Gomez sort of out of form and Lovren. Well, Lovren started over Gomez, didn't he, when Matip was injured? So I think that shows just how low down Gomez is in the squad at the moment. So the double up and even pairing sort of Alexander-Arnold with Robertson as well. I mean, if you think they're both around 7 million, both really attacking, that could be the time when they both start showing some promise when the fixtures turn. So I'd probably either go for. I'm definitely going to have 3 Liverpool basically for when the fixtures turn. So it'll either be the 2 attackers and Trent, or the 2 defenders and Mane.
I echo your thoughts on Matip. He's looked very good, and I think referencing back to our heated debate about the Liverpool double up, sort of back in, what was it, about a month ago. I'm not gonna pull out a results card or anything like that, but I think we probably.
I'm just glad that United didn't keep any either, because
we were both wrong, weren't we? We were both wrong.
Definitely.
But I think probably what we both agree on at this stage right now is that Alexander-Arnold and Robertson probably perhaps still just a bit too much when you combine them in terms of cost. But Matip, fantastic price. A lot of people, if they've got Otamendi right now, for example, it's kind of like a relatively easy switch because similar price. And Klopp, I believe this week has described him as a world-class defender. So if anyone still has a slight bit of concern about rotation, Klopp is not going to describe him as world class and then bench him. He's not Guardiola, who describes.
They're literally the polar opposite of each other. Otamendi and Matip. One in great form with rubbish fixtures, and one in absolutely horrendous form with amazing fixtures.
That's FPL, right? There's very few players who match up both. Maybe that's why it's been so tricky last couple of weeks. Well, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you both guys for joining us and making up the numbers whilst Joe's away. Great contributions from you both. Those of you who are watching, good luck for your game week, and make sure you stay with our coverage for the rest of the day. We've got all the games coming through our Twitter feed, all the analysis. We'll have some articles later today, some analysis on the top 10k and what they've been getting up to over the international break, and we'll have some scout notes through Sunday and through Monday with detailed analysis of all the games. So make sure you keep reading those. Next week we'll have some more announcements on the Pro Pundits front, so keep an eye on that. Plenty more fantastic content to come, and also worth saying that if you've enjoyed any of the stats that we mention either in the videos or the articles, then there is a link in the description below on how to sign up for membership for the 2019-20 season. So it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye all.